Look at him again. I mean, not only is he he's got the hair brushed, he's got a purple sweater on. Is purple your kind of color, Doc? You wear purple a lot?
I don't know. I've got some purple. Yeah. Is that okay?
Well, you know what? It's okay with me because you and I were texting on Saturday, the Horned Frogs of
That's
TCU.
Right. That's right. Very impressive, Thom. You made a good call on that one.
Well, it was a bias call. It was a bias call. I don't know if you heard before you just came on. The Bills released a statement moments ago, and we were talking about how, hospitals and doctors are very, very guarded, especially in this day and age, about the kind of words they choose. And the word was remarkable progress for Damar Hamlin in his recovery at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. It seems like in the last 48 hours, Doc, you can hope and pray that it's going to get better and better, and at least so far, those prayers are being answered.
Well, that's fantastic. I saw I guess it was a tweet briefly right before we came on. Yeah, what you said, and that's just terrific. And credit really, and we've said this a million times, but it's worth saying a million more. An absolutely fantastic job done by the emergency medical people on site on Monday night. That really obviously made the difference. Those people deserve more credit than anybody can possibly give them, and of course all the best to Mr. Hamlin and his family. From all that we've read about him in the last few days, he seems like an exceptional young man who had his head screwed on straight and knew what he was on this earth for, and it wasn't necessarily to play football. So great, yeah. I mean, great news all the way around. That makes my day, and I'm sure it makes lots of days.
Doc, it's been talked about in a secondary fashion, as it should be, about things that should happen with the football side of all of this. There's no way the Bengals and Bills are coming back to Cincinnati next week and making up this game, right? No chance.
No chance.
All right, let me ask you this. Let's just play out the scenario, and I asked both Casey and Paul this question. And take the emotional part out of it for a minute. I'm just asking you a question theoretically. If you were the Bengals, strictly football speaking, and you know what we know, that if they do play the Ravens this weekend. If you make up the Buffalo game, you have a chance to be the number one. You could be the number two. You could be the number three. You could be the number 5, or you could be the number 6 seed in the AFC playoffs. Or you don't play the Buffalo game, period. You're guaranteed the 3 spot with a chance to still get the number 2 spot. Which of those two would you choose?
I think mental and physical well-being supersedes everything. And that said, I would skip that game, and whatever they're seeded, they're seeded. I don't think there's much doubt that the Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, in that order, are the 3 best teams in the AFC. Therefore, I don't see a whole lot of point in playing it over or taking it up from where it left off. Bengals, Bills. I mean, Thom, you can't just simply discount what's happened in the first 16 games of a season because you want it all to, work out, I guess, the way it's supposed to work out. If you have to make a decision here, I think you go with, what have they done so far? And it's obvious to me anyway. I couldn't even tell you who the number 4 seed is right now. Maybe the Ravens, maybe the Chargers. I don't even know.
Right.
Point being that the Chiefs, Bills, and Bengals have done better work than anyone else in that conference. And that should count for something over 16 games. And again, another week of healing, mentally especially, but also physically, is certainly, in my opinion, more important than having a more decisive seeding for the AFC playoffs.
When you were writing for the Enquirer as a lead columnist for 35 plus years, you wrote a number of columns and all spot on about Bengals ownership for a long, long time. I made the comment a little while ago that Mike Brown has not always been a great owner of a football team. In fact, you could probably make the argument there are a lot of years where he has not been a good owner in terms of trying to win games. But I think we all agree, and you've gotten to know him a little bit, I've gotten to know him a little bit, you hear stories from other people, you've acknowledged some of this in your various columns about the things he does that go, unrecognized or under the radar or unnoticed. I think right now this Bengals franchise encompasses everything there is about who Mike Brown really is. He's always been a compassionate man, a caring man. His team and his head coach showing that yesterday and really every day, but yesterday especially. His quarterback doing the same thing, talking about loving his teammates, loving one another, and now you complete the circle, as I said a little while ago, where it's really easy to like them because they're winning games. But I think this is Mike Brown's team. Does that make any sense to you?
Sure. Yeah, I think he's removed himself from the day to day. I think, even though he does still go in every day, usually really early. He's all in on all the big decisions. I don't know that he's that involved anymore in the day to day. Nevertheless, it's still his team. It still reflects his, I don't know what the word is, his spirit, his heart, his generosity, have you, without reflecting a lot of the stuff that people didn't like him for, which was most of which was financial. I've said forever, even when they weren't doing well, which was quite a long time, that I thought he was a great guy. I just didn't think he was a good football guy. And that's same today, I think. I respected his football knowledge, but in the past, that knowledge has been somewhat clouded by his financial philosophies. But no, I've always said, and I even told Mike the last time I talked to him right before I retired, I said, you know what? If you and I were not in these positions, sort of an adversarial kind of relationship, at least distant professionally, I'd like to be your friend, And I meant that. He said the same thing. I think he's an interesting man. I think he's a witty guy. We've talked about it, his compassion. I think his heart is almost always in the right place. And like you said, we're seeing evidence of that now. I think the organization has been exemplary in the way it has handled its job. It's part of this dreadful week.
The NFL is an easy target. I mean, they are the king of the jungle. There's no doubt about it. And I know you had some things. You wrote about them the other night, how long it took them to cancel the game in themorningline.substack.com. You can find it and read it and all of Paul Daugherty's work there. But are they so big right now, Paul? I mean, we all agree with, if you screw things up, you got to take the heat for it. No matter who you are, no matter how big, how small, you screw up, you take the heat, action, reaction, et cetera, et cetera. But is the NFL on things like this, Doc, almost in a no-win situation, damned if you do, damned if you don't? You play the game, you should have called it off 10 minutes before, you should have done this, you should have done that, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that? Are we at a point in society where somebody like them, or really anybody, can do anything right?
Oh, I think they do lots of things right, and the bottom line attests to that pretty strongly. I wrote this morning. I just posted a little while ago. I made a mistake in judgment by coming down as hard as I did Tuesday on the league's decision to wait for an hour and 5 minutes before postponing the game. I still maintain that that was wrong, that they could have done it a lot more quickly than they did. That said, my timing was inappropriate. It was too soon to go off on the NFL when Mr. Hamlin was still in dire straits. That said, Thom, in my opinion, you can never go wrong being cynical about the motives of the National Football League. I think essentially their interests are guided more by image and by extension money than they are by trying to do what you would think is the right thing. You cannot tell me that a league that's concerned more than anything about the safety of its players has no problem playing 17 regular season games, has no problem making teams play, every team in the league play on Thursday night after playing a Sunday, and still has 3 exhibition games on the docket strictly for the purpose of soaking more money from the fans at the stadiums. If the NFL were truly concerned about players' health, it might be reducing the number of games, not adding it. It might be more interested in guaranteed contracts. It might have moved a whole lot more quickly on CTE and concussions and their lifelong effects than it did. As it was, the league was kind of dragged kicking and screaming into that by players and doctors who said, look, this is what's going on. You need to do something about it. I still think the NFL is guided more by its need to maintain its image and its need to make money than it is by anything else.
Yeah, and the one area that I came to learn a lot about, and it's been written about and it's been talked about, but when you start breaking down the numbers, it is appalling. And look, at the end of the day, this comes down to the strength of the union, or truly the lack thereof strength of the union, as far as the way they take care of their players once they retire. You know, Major League Baseball, you max out on the pension, you're getting paid anywhere from $250,000 to $400,000 a year for the rest of your life. There are football players that are lucky to be making $1,500, $2,000 a month, you know, well below the poverty line, when they max out on the pension. That's the area, I think, as much as anything, that the NFL, and you talk about number of games, and you talk about CTE, and they've poured literally tens of millions of dollars into bettering the equipment, research and technology on the helmets, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, the point was made, a kid like Hamlin, if for some reason he can never come back and play football again, and he needed long-term care for the rest of his life, you know, maybe because it would be such a public thing, the Bills would just give him his health care the rest of his life, even though he doesn't get his health care from the Bills. But that the Players Union and the Players Association, nope, not going to happen.
In my opinion, I think any football player, professional football player, who becomes mentally and or physically disabled by the career he had deserves a lifetime of care. If this incident did one thing positive beyond the GoFundMe that's now over $7 million for Mr. Hamlin's charity, in essence, it showed that these guys, that they're human beings. You know, they might be covered up covered up like warriors. They might have helmets on so we can't see their faces. We might look at them as gladiators, and now we need to start looking at them as people just like you and me. They're still human beings, and a part of that should be, look, these guys put themselves on the line for our amusement every week in the fall. And when something happens to them like this, they need to be taken care of, and they can't just be forgotten. Well, you you knew what you were getting into when you signed the contract. Well, sure. That doesn't mean we don't take care of them. And I think you're right. The league and the union have fallen far short of that. And maybe with this incident, things will improve.
Well, Doc, thanks as always for your insight, and this is going to be a fun weekend of football starting up and waiting to find out how this whole thing plays out. First and foremost, everybody thinking and praying for Damar Hamlin. Looks like things are moving in the right direction. So thank you for your time and for supporting the TCU Horned Frogs.
You got it, Thom. All the way, buddy.
Absolutely, all the way.